See you on Monday. Thank you very much.
See you on Monday.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I like not knowing what's going to happen. I like making memories. Sometimes I do all this crazy shit around my colleagues just so that they can tell their friends I did it. But rather than talk about myself, just briefly, I want to just talk about my genre. Stand-up comedy is an incredibly American genre. I don't think any other country could produce this many comedians. And unbeknownst to many people in this audience, I don't think there's opinion that it exists in this country that is not represented in a comedy club by somebody. Each and every one of you has a champion in the room. We watch you guys fight, but when we're together, we talk it out. I know comics that are very racist, and I watch them on stage, and everyone's laughing, and I'm like, that motherfucker means that shit. Don't get mad at them, don't hate them. We go upstairs and have a beer, and sometimes I even appreciate the artistry that they paint their racist opinions with. Man, it's not that serious. First Amendment is first for a reason. Second Amendment is just in case the first one doesn't work out.
Heard that. You see one?
I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. What I gonna do? Sit down, fucking prize? No, nigga, this is called leverage. Thing I like best about the thing is that I saw so many people from different parts of my life, like friends that I grew up with here in DC, friends of mine from Ohio then and now, friends of mine from all the fucking musicians that we want by. You guys have no idea how you inspire. I want to give a special shout out to my OG, Tony Woods. Miles Davis has a quote. It's one of my favorite. Miles Davis said so much cool shit, but one of the things he said I always loved, he said it took me years to learn how to play like myself. You know, he watch other musicians and he would try to play like Dizzy and Bird, all the guys who were great. Tony Woods was my Dizzy and Bird. If I was a Miles, I was trying to play like you. You were the first person I ever saw do it absolutely right. Fearless. He told the truth. There's something so true about this one, but done correctly. And I will fight anybody that gets a true practitioner of this art form way. Because I know you. This is the truth. And you are the truth. I'm not talking about the content. I'm talking about the offer. Do you understand? We have an agreement. And what I really want to say tonight, my friend, I'm gay.
Shit.
I can't wait to see what this does for my career being gay like this. So many special shout outs. One of the main architects who come back this century. My brother and my mentor, Mighty Stan Lathan. I never dreamed that I would be able to work with someone as great as you. These last 5 specials, straight fire. I don't want to do nothing special with anybody else but you. So eat your motherfucking vegetables and live as long as you can, because we doing a few more of these bitches. Neil Brennan, your speech made me cry. because it reminded me of all those hard days of work and all that money I never got for it. The other real special shout out I gotta make, because none of this would have been possible on any level without this person, is my mother. Mom. My mother. Mom. You have no idea what I put this woman through. If you had just given birth to me, there would have been more than enough. The fact that you raised me and raised me well. We had a real oral tradition in our house. I knew the word griot when I was a little boy. A griot was a person in Africa who was charged with keeping the stories of the village. Everyone would tell a griot the stories, and they would remember them all so that they could tell future generations. When they got old, they would tell them to someone else. And they say in Africa, when a griot dies, it's like a library was burnt down. And my mother used to tell me, before I ever thought about doing comedy, she said, you should be a griot. And she'd fill me with every story of black life. You know, she's educated in African American studies, and she would let me understand the context that I was being raised in. That I'm being raised in a hostile environment that I have to tame. By the time I was 14 years old, I was in nightclubs, mastering an adult world. It was terrifying. The crack epidemic was going on, and my mother would hear gunshots outside and be scared to death. Maybe it's my son. But early in my career, you remember, Mom used to sit in the club with me. She'd do a full day of work, be back there falling asleep, just waiting for me to go on. She would watch my show every night. Do you know how long that car ride is home? How many of you have ever heard your mother say, pussy jokes were a little too much tonight, son? I was a soft kid. I was sensitive, I'd cry easy, and I would be scared to fist fight. And my mother used to tell me this, and I don't even know if you remember, but you said this to me more than once. You said, son, sometimes you have to be a lion so you can be the lamb you really are. I talk this shit like a lion. I'm not afraid of any of you. When it comes word to word, I will gab with the best of them, just so I can chill and be me. And that's why I love my art form, because I understand every practitioner of it, whether I agree with them or not. I know where they're coming from. They want to be heard. They got something to say. There's something they notice. They just want to be understood. Love this job. It saved my life. So tonight, Mom, I would like to honor you in a very special way that I cannot do on my own. But because now I'm a man with great and influential friends, I'd like to ask my man Thundercat to come out on stage. Thundercat, Mighty Mos Def. Washington, D.C., thank you very much for giving me a home and a place to start. Today is officially Dave Chappelle Day in Washington, D.C. The mayor declared last night. So, in the future, on Dave Chappelle Day, I ask everyone who wishes to celebrate it to make one incredible memory for themselves and or somebody else. Thank you very much. Good night.
We started the company with the mission of improving the efficiency of the combustion engine.
Oh yeah.
Asked her
Oh,
about
I
her
skipped
trip.
it.
Nah, it's all good.
All smiles, she said it was
This
absolutely
one right
wonderful.
here. The liquid piston.
Not only did we
Ooh.
arrive on
Holy
time in a
shit.
brand new jet, but it was overbooked, and they bumped us up to first class.
So all type of
The
shit like
food
that.
and the wine were wonderful. I had a handsome
Technologies
28-year-old
that be in,
steward who
like,
waited on me hand and foot. And the hotel,
production stage or
fabulous.
Like whatever
They just
stage,
finished a
one of the early
$5 million
stages.
remodeling job, and now it's a jewel. The finest
Like-
hotel in the city.
Or they accidentally
They too were
invent shit
overbooked.
because they're
So
trying to do
the
something else.
gave us
Well,
their
no, where
own
they
suite
trying
with no
to
extra charge.
raise money
Well, so they
to get
I
it
know you didn't get to see the
in
Pope.
production and shit.
Well,
Oh,
so
okay.
You're like an early
That's the
investor.
weirdest part
I
of
get
all.
what you're saying.
Actually,
There's
we
a
were quite
lot of
lucky.
stuff like
Whereas
a
we
lot of
toured the
cool shit
Vatican,
out
the
there that
secretary
needs to be
tapped me
funded,
on the
you know?
shoulder and explained that the Pope likes to personally meet some of the visitors. If I'd just be so kind as to step into his private room and wait, the Pope would personally greet me. Well, sure enough, 5 minutes later, the Holy Father himself walked through the door and shook my hand. And I knelt down, and he spoke a few words to me. It was so wonderful. Really, said the hairdresser. Well, what did he say? Well, he said, where'd you get that lousy hairdo? Don't look for occasions to be offended. And don't ever allow yourself to be offended. Being offended is a weakness of the ego. And you can find all kinds of reasons, and right here in this room. I mean, some of you, the way you dress to come to an event like this, it's really disgusting. And that hair of yours, please. I mean, you can do a lot better than that, you know? And those colors, they don't match at all. And that jewelry, I don't know what you were thinking, you know what I'm saying? And you hear people go through their life doing exactly this, always finding reasons to be offended. 2, let go of your need to win. Let go of the need to win. Letting go of the need to win is really a huge obsession in our country and in our world. The idea that if I get more points than you do, not only am I better, and not only are you a loser, but it makes me more important. Somehow we've got this belief system in the ego. But the problem with the ego and defeating others and having to win is that your performance or somebody else's performance determines whether or not you feel worthy or not. And always that's giving up your power. 3, let go of your need to be right. Just let go of it. You know how many arguments could be saved in marriages if you just let go of your need to be right? You know, that's a good point. I never thought of it before. Thanks. I'll give it some thought. I appreciate it. What a way to respond instead of, what are you talking about? You don't even know what you're saying. Now, how can, and you hear, and I see straight, I mean, I can see it when I meet people, 5 minutes having dinner with them, 5 minutes, I can see this need to be right, the need to win and get to make someone else wrong continuously. And it's going on all the time over nothing, over just trivial little things. Like he said this, no, he said that. Like it's really important whether he said this or whether he said that. It was $25. It wasn't. It was $24. I remember specifically. It was only $24. No, it was $25. No, it was $24. You never get anything right. On we go with trivialities. I'm in that situation. So whatever it was, it's okay. Just let go of your need to be right. It's those words that I talked about earlier in one of my earlier programs. All you have to do is say these words. You're right about that. Boy, I'll tell you, it just ends so many struggles and so many difficulties. Good point. You're right about that. 4, let go of your need to be superior. Let go of your need to be better than someone else. You came from a source of energy that is expressive and expansive and receptive to all. That was the source from which you emanated. Anytime you take on the belief system that you are better than somebody else. See, true nobility is not about being better than anybody else. It's about being better than you used to be. Just being better than you used to be. And I can say that standing up here in front of you today, that I'm not better than one person here in this room, but I'm better than I used to be in virtually every dimension of my life. As a father, as a mate, as a teacher, as a human being. I know that I'm better than I used to be. I even made an apology in this book, Power of Intention. Many years ago, I wrote a book called Pulling Your Own Strings, back in 1977. I made a statement in there that I thought was cute. I said that when you want to return something, if you want to be victimized,
don't go to a clerk because a clerk is a jerk. And I thought it was a cute little phrase, and I didn't really mean the person themselves was a jerk. I really meant that the person that is the clerk cannot get it done for you if you want to exchange it or whatever. Go to someone who has authority. But I said it in those terms. And I apologized then, and I apologize now to anybody in the world who is a clerk, which I spent a lot of years being in my own life on my way to where I am now. And I'm still a clerk in many ways. When you have 8 children, you do a lot of clerking. Right? But today I wouldn't know how to make a comment like that. Today it wouldn't be the beingness, the source of my thoughts. It's not really about positive thinking, it's more about where do these thoughts originate? And my source of being would not allow me to make such a statement. I'm better than I used to be in virtually every dimension of my life. And I think it's important for you to remember that, to stop thinking of yourself as better than or superior. And it's again one of the reasons I have such a struggle with this idea that ridding the world of dictators is worth having a whole bunch of people killed in order to get rid of a dictator. And I always wonder about why is that one little private who was killed this day and blown up, why is that considered to be better than having this dictator on the planet? Isn't that person's life just as valuable and just as important? And I watch the people with the bodyguards, and I watch the long lines of people with wanting to get autographs from those who are in positions of leadership or in positions of just being noticed, celebrities of all kinds. And remind myself always that there's not one person out there that's any better than anyone else. I remember Gandhi suggesting that the person lays the robe down so that he didn't have to step on the dirt, or on the mud rather. Man laid his cape down so that he didn't get his feet wet. He said, no, he said, you are just as important a being as I am. No one is superior to anyone else. It's something that if we remembered that, then we wouldn't be so willing to sacrifice other people's, particularly their lives. Give up your need to have more. The mantra of the ego is more. I never have enough. The mantra of the higher self. See, the higher part of you, the part of you that's connected to source, only wants one thing. It just wants you to be at peace. That's all it wants. The part of you that wants more, that demands more, that believes that if you don't have more, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be happy, is the part of the ego that keeps you from being connected to your source. Number 6, let go of identifying yourself on the basis of your achievements. You are not what you achieve. You are divine. You are the source, a piece of the source. And finally, let go of identifying yourself on the basis of your reputation. You are not your reputation. You are not what others think of you. If I get up there and give a talk in front of 1,000 people, I have 1,000 reputations. And there's absolutely nothing that I can do to change that. My reputation is not located in me. It's located outside of me. The only thing I can be responsible for is my character and my connection to God. And as long as I can suspend that ego and stay connected to this source of all that is, then the ego and the energy systems and the self-talk that are all obstacles to connecting to intention will dissolve. And next we're going to take up this whole idea about infinite self, and then go into these 7 phases of intention and how they can work for you in every moment of your life.
As experts in online education, Purdue University Global gives you all the flexibility you need to balance school, work, and life. Take classes 100% online to fit your schedule, your pace, and your personal budget. Learn how to save on tuition and time online.
what I really wanted to present here, open with here today, is this concept of inner being, your inner being. And it's not a airy-fairy kind of concept. It is changing that place of beingness, so that ultimately you don't get angry at yourself, you don't feel ashamed, you don't get hurt, you don't get depressed, because you continue to have thoughts that are negative, or that don't work, or that are hateful, or that are judgmental, or that are depressing. You don't do any of that at all. You just go, aha, there's one more. I'm going to change that place within me. And you change that place within you by becoming aware of these 7 phases. But the 7 phases of intention have to be, I think, preceded by a concept that really was the motivation behind the writing of The Power of Intention and the production of this series. And it was from Carlos Castaneda's The Active Side of Infinity. He said the most difficult problem that all civilized people, civilized in quote, seem to have is that we are all in bodies that are going to die, but we act as if they're not. So that the concept of infinity is something that eludes us. And because we don't see our infinite nature, we get stuck on what he called the inactive side of infinity. And that shift from the inactive side of infinity, where we come to fear death, is troublesome for people, because basically we don't die, other people do. And it's okay. We expect our grandparents to die until we become a grandparent. And we're not surprised at the people that we read about who die on ferry boat accidents, or in explosions, or in accidents. And so, but we deny our own death because we fear it. And we fear something that doesn't exist. And this illusion keeps us from being able to make contact with these 7 phases of intention, to be really connected to intention. And of course, the purpose in connecting to intention is to be able to have the power of intention. And the power of intention is the power to be able to do all that the field of energy from which we all emanate can do. And that means it's limitless. So it's literally our ability to become limitless, to live as beings who have a firm grip on the trolley strap and are aware that they're going through this experience in complete divine order. Everything is perfect. You can't do that when you're on the inactive side of infinity. I go back to when I lived in a foster home, which was really like a mini orphanage. And I was recalling to my brother Dave what happened in 1947. This is like almost 60 years before. Mrs. Scarf came out, and she had 2 bananas in her hand. And she gave one to me, and she gave one to my brother Dave. And we peeled the bananas, and she had tears streaming down her face. And I looked up at her, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, Mr. Scarf died this morning. And I was just this innocent little boy, a 6, 7-year-old boy, and my brother Dave was just 16 months older than I am. And I said, well, when will he be back? And she said, never. Now, I've never forgotten this conversation. And I'm 63 years old. And I went upstairs to my bunk, and I laid there, and I ate that banana, and I tried to contemplate the concept of never. Never. I'd like you to try that right now. Just contemplate yourself as being dead forever. Forever. I'm not talking about a million years, because we'll just sleep through it. And we'll wake up in a million years and we'll get on with it. But the idea of never is so terrifying to us because we live on the inactive side of infinity. we can't conceive of such a thing, so that when we try to think about what it would be like to be dead forever and ever and ever, and millions and billions and trillions of years go by, and you're still dead. There's a nothingness, there's an emptiness, that it's so terrifying that we think about something else immediately. I'm just going to go have an orgasm. That's it. You know, make up for this. I mean, this is just something we do in order to keep ourselves from having to live on this inactive side of infinity. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is what Castaneda is trying to teach, and this is what the power of intention is really about trying to teach as well, is to make the shift away from never into a place where we start to live on the active side of infinity, where we see ourselves as infinite beings, as infinite beings. When you see yourself as this infinite soul, this infinite being, then all of your fears about dying, and all of your fears about being sick, and all of your fears and worries and anxieties and depressions and all of that stuff, you become the observer to it. You get outside of the open parentheses before your birth, and you just look at it. And because you're able to observe it and to look at it and to laugh at it, it doesn't become an issue any longer. And because it's not an issue any longer, you're at peace with it. And when you're at peace with it, you're at one with God, because God and peace are the same. Your higher self only wants you to be at peace. And everything that you worry about and are anxious about and keep yourself from manifesting and attracting into your life is basically because you're stuck in this parentheses in eternity, thinking that this is all you are. Like that thing I read to you before about this ego of yours, this tiny little, piddly little thing of an ego, believes, this little tiniest little ripple on the ocean, believes that it's the ocean. And you know that who you are is greater than the ocean and greater than the sun. You know that. But all of this is encapsulated into these four concepts of infinity, which will help you to see infinity from a light in which you can connect to intention by stepping outside of the inactive side of infinity, just moving over to the active side. The first infinity is the infinity of time. So when we think about time, we think about what we measure by what is on our wrist, don't we? But we really know that time, as Einstein said, is an illusion. It doesn't really exist. There's only now. There's only now. What a concept. This is it. But the one thing that I have learned about studying people who have crossed over, people who speak about near-death experiences and so on, is that at your moment of death, you will emerge into the oneness, so that you'll get outside of the world of time. You're headed there. We're all headed there. We all have what Castaneda calls an appointment with infinity. We all have an appointment with infinity. And you can't stop the appointment with infinity. There was a novel written about your appointment with infinity called Appointment in Samara. The legend goes that the day that you see the angel of death is the day that you will die. You will leave your body that day. And so a man was in a village years and years and years ago, and he looked over. He was only in his 20s, and he saw the angel of death smiling at him, waving at him. And he got terrified. And he was in a city, I think the city was Tashkent, I'm not sure. And he got on his horse, and he ran as fast as he could, rode 40, 50 kilometers until he got to Samara. And he checked into the inn. It was 11 o'clock at night. He closed the doors behind him, locked them, put the curtains across the window. Finally, and he sat down in the chair, on the bed rather, and he looked over at the chair, and there was the angel of death. And he said, I can't believe it. He said, what are you doing here? I saw you this morning in Tashkent, and I ran all this way. And the angel of death said to him, if you think you're surprised, imagine mine. He said, I saw you this morning there in Tashkent. I couldn't believe you were there because I knew I had an appointment with you here tonight in Samara. And I always get, I've told that story 100 times, and I always get goosebumps when I tell that story. Like, you think you can run away from it. There was a story of a guy who did they did an analysis of all of the places that a nuclear war was likely to take place. And he took a compass and he studied this meticulously, and where a disaster could occur. And he made these compass circles, and he made all of these circles, and he was going to live somewhere outside of the circle where the chance of a nuclear effect or any kind of a disaster hitting him would be like 1.1% or something. I mean, he had
Jesus
virtually
Christ.
no chance of a disaster. And he moved there. And they declared war on the Falkland Islands about 20 years ago. And his house was blown up, and he lost part of his family. You know, he moved right into it, into the only place. I mean, the Falkland Islands.
Don't
What were they
trees.
doing? And there's not a person listening who
Like,
doesn't know
why
that
are
you
you
have
even
an
thinking
appointment
about that?
Don't hit
in
the wall.
Solana. You have an appointment
So
with
dumb.
infinity. All right. The question is, do I
So
keep
conscious
that
of-
appointment while I'm still alive, or do I keep that appointment
Your wish is
after
my
I
command.
die? I suggest that you can make this appointment with infinity now by connecting to intention, which is infinite. And time is one of those illusions. I mean, how far back
Okay.
can you go?
It was so
We
pretty,
have recorded
and then I
history.
fucked it up.
So we go back, what,
So I
12,
do it again.
13,000 years. I mean, it's a speck.